Hi, I'm Erin with 5 Parks Yoga. Thank you so much for joining me for class today. Today's class is going to be a lower back and hip strengthening and stretching class. So if you're having any low back issues or low back pain, this class is perfect for you. We are going to do some strengthening postures as well. So if you need to just kind of lay off that, depending on what's going on in your body, of course, I'll give you some alternatives. So let's start today in extended child's pose, which is a wonderful stretch for the hips and the low back, and we'll practice some breathing before we get moving. So if you have not already, don't forget to subscribe to my website and hit the bell icon for notifications of classes that are coming out. So go ahead and come onto your shins, bring your knees wide and your big toes to touch. Bring your hips toward your heels, and then begin to walk your hands forward. Rest your forehead down on the ground. If your forehead doesn't come to the ground, you can always rest your forehead on your hands or a block, or just release your arms so they're bent if that's a little bit more accessible to you. Wherever you are, let's start with some deep breathing. So breathe in through your nose, hold it. Let it go through your mouth. Begin to breathe in and out through your nose. Just a light seal of your lips. If it's in your practice, you can begin to activate your ujjayi breathing, gently constricting the back of your throat so that your breath becomes audible. Let this breath, the sound of your breath, be your guide as you begin to move through your physical practice. Just hold this posture for a few more breaths, releasing your low back, your hips, and of course your shoulders if your arms are extended. Complete your exhale here. Make your way up to tabletop position. We'll take some cats and cows, which is great for your entire spine, including your low back. So breathe in, drop your belly, lift the crown of your head and your tailbone, and then breathe out, round your spine, lift and separate your shoulder blades, and then just draw your tailbone down toward the floor. So this is an excellent stretch for your low back. And start to go back and forth from cat to cow. Breathing with each movement. Breathe into cow, out to cat, and come back to tabletop position. From here, extend your right leg to the right. Position your heel behind your toes. Tuck your left toes under, bring your hip back towards your heel. Walk your hands forward. Just take one breath. And come back up and switch sides. So extend your left leg to the left. Position your heel behind your toes. Tuck your right toes under. Bring your hip back towards your heel and walk your hands forward. Just for one breath. Stretch for your left inner thigh as well as the bottom of your foot and your toes. And then come all the way back up. Let's come into downward facing dog. Spread your fingers nice and wide. Tuck your toes under. And then lift your hips, release your heels down toward your mat. In this first downward facing dog, go ahead and just give your head a little shake and start to walk out your legs. So bending and straightening one leg at a time, feeling the stretch all the way up the backs of both legs, feeling the strength in your arms. So any modifications you need for downward facing dog, you can bend your legs a lot, you can walk your feet further forward, and just continue to breathe deeply in and out through your nose. And then take your gaze forward, come walk your feet toward your hands, come toward the front of your mat, bend your legs a lot and come into ragdoll, which is another great release for the spine. And of course, a nice relaxing pose for your head and neck. If this doesn't feel relaxing with your hands interlaced or your arms lifted up off of your mat, you can always place them down on the floor or blocks. Again, bending your knees as much as needed. So again, stretching your hamstrings, your low back. You can sway side to side. One more breath here. Release your hands if they're not already down on the floor or blocks. And then just roll your weight up to a standing position. So nice and slow. Your head will be the last thing to arrive when you come to standing. And then just take a nice big roll of your shoulders down away from your ears. Face your palms out, reach your fingertips down toward the floor so you're in a strong mountain pose. Lift up through the crown of your head. On your next breath in, lift both arms up overhead. Connect the palms of your hands. And then exhale, bring your hands through heart center and make a big circle of the arms. Just 3 here, so breathe in. And out. And in. And out. And return to mountain pose, reaching your fingers toward the floor, palms face out. And then take your left hand up onto the top of your head and just take a gentle stretch of your neck. So bringing your left ear toward your left shoulder. And then come back to center and switch sides. So bring your right hand to the top of your head, draw your right ear toward your right shoulder, reach down through those left fingertips. And then come back to center, return to mountain pose, bring both arms up overhead. As you exhale, just swan dive nice and slow, hinging from your hips, reaching your arms off to the side and come down to standing forward fold. Bend your legs as much as needed. Getting a nice stretch to your hamstrings. All right, and from this position, come up to a halfway lift like you're doing a monkey pose. Pause here And then heel toe your feet toward the edges of your mat, just depending on your height. So you can adjust the distance and then start to squat down. So coming into a low, deep squat, bring your hands to your heart, elbows toward your knees. If your hips are really tight or if this is producing any pain anywhere in your body, you can sit up on a block or support yourself in some way. So it's a little bit easier to get into the pose, and just take some time getting into the pose. It's a very deep stretch. And then we're gonna hold it just to really loosen up the hips, loosen up the low back, and breathe. So you can close your eyes. And again, any support you need so that you can hold the pose. You can take this really slowly. Deep, steady breathing. One more breath in garland pose. Breathe in and out. Now you can release your hands down towards your mat, blocks, whatever you have available, and then slowly release from this pose by coming up into a wide-legged ragdoll pose. So very, very gentle release, and you can just kind of sway side to side, beginning to bend and straighten one leg at a time, releasing your low back. And then just kind of make your way back to a neutral centered position. Keep your hands on the floor and just take your right foot and bring it a little bit closer towards your right hand if it's not already. And you can position it toes in front of heels or at an angle. We're going to take wide-legged low lunge. So you're going to take a giant step back with your left leg. You can remain upright on your hands, keeping your back leg lifted and engaged, or if you'd like to release your knee down to the floor. And then you can go from here and take your forearms down to your mat if you'd like. If your foot is toes in front of heels and you'd like to experiment, you can take your toes off to an angle and start to release your right knee to the right. You can even take some movement here, so a gentle sway side to side. One more breath here in wide-legged low lunge, any variation that you're in. And then after you complete your exhale, if you're not already, come up onto your hands and you're just going to heel toe your right foot to the left side of your mat. So you're going to come into a half pigeon pose. Wonderful hip release. Making any modifications that you need. If you want to set a block underneath your hips, or you can set a block here for your forehead to rest on, or you can come all the way down onto your forehead, on your mat, on your hands. And just take some deep breaths here. This posture is great for your glutes, hips, psoas, low back. So many things going on. If you're in pain, make adjustments though. You can bring your right foot closer in. If you want a deeper stretch, you can bring your right foot and shin closer to parallel with the front of your mat. And then come back up onto your hands. You're just going to take your left leg out from behind you, swing it around. We're gonna come into cradle the baby pose. So you're gonna take your left shin, hold on to your left foot with your right hand, your left knee with your left hand, and then just start to lift your shin up. So you can also wrap your arms around, clasping your hands, or you can cradle your calf in your elbows. So any option is great. And then I like to encourage a little movement in this posture. And this is when you can really just find out where you're holding tension in your hips or your low back or whatever's going on, and maybe take an extra moment where you feel that. And we'll just take one more breath here. Now you're gonna take your left foot. I'm not mirroring you right now, so it's gonna be opposite for you as you look at me, but you're gonna take your left leg straight off to the side, and then bring your right foot toward your left inner thigh. And this is one of my very favorite stretches for the low back. So you're gonna feel it on mostly your right side. So you're just gonna twist toward your left foot. You can reach your arms up overhead, take a deep breath in, and then you can hinge from your hips and either reach toward your foot or a strap, or walk your hands forward. So if you really try and level out your shoulders and twist from your torso, I hope you'll feel it in your low back. And it doesn't have to be deep, even if it's just right here. So take it to that level where you're really feeling a nice stretch, not just in your hamstring, but again, in your low back. Release from your fold, all the way back up. And then let's take a half lotus twist. So you're gonna take your left foot toward your right hip crease. If this is not accessible to you, you can just cross your foot in front, your leg in front of the other. Or you can bring it all the way up, bring your arms up overhead, and then bring your right hand to your left knee, your left hand out behind, and just peek out over your shoulder. Take a nice deep breath here. And then reach your arms back up overhead as you breathe in, and then make your way all the way back to a tabletop position. So you can just kind of roll over your knees, release your feet. And then from here, lift your right leg straight out behind you, like you're gonna do a spinal balance pose, and cross it over your left foot and place it on the floor. Tuck your toes under, and then bump your hips to the right and start to peek out toward your left foot. All the way back to center and switch sides. So lift your left leg straight out behind you. Keep your hips level, keep your spine neutral, and then bring your left foot across toward the right. Tuck your toes under, bump your hips to the left, and then look back toward your left toes over your right shoulder. And then come all the way back to a tabletop position. Return to downward facing dog, tucking your toes under, lifting your hips, releasing your heels. Breathe deeply in through your nose. Take a big open mouth exhale. walk your feet toward the front of your mat. Heel toe your feet out to the outer edges of your mat at an angle, and then return to garland pose. All right, we're gonna do a little bit of hip strengthening and low back strengthening. If this does not work for your body for whatever reason, hold garland pose and maybe take a different modification or variation of it. So if you're gonna take this strengthening option, you're gonna keep the palms of your hands pressed to one another, bring your thumbs toward your sternum, you're gonna keep your elbows connected to your knees, and you're gonna lift and lower with a flat back. So just come halfway up so that your hips are in line with the top of your head, you're gazing down at your mat, and then lower down. And so we'll just start to lift and lower. Continue with your deep breathing. We're going to do 5 more. That's 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, just like we did on the other side, our release is going to be a wide-legged ragdoll position. So you can take your hands to the floor, to blocks, bring your hips up, keep your legs bent, and then just kind of drape over nice and loose and heavy, and then you can just sway side to side. So again, I hope you're feeling it in your low back from a strengthening perspective. And then we'll continue to stretch. So bring your left foot a little bit further up toward the top of your mat. And again, you can have your heel behind your toes, or you can angle it. We're going to take wide-legged low lunge. So step your right foot back. So strength building position, you can keep your leg lifted, nice and engaged, or you can take your right knee down toward the floor. And same thing on this side. You can keep your hands on the floor, stay upright, or come onto your forearms. You can keep your toes in front of your heel, or you can bring it out to an angle and then just release your left knee to the left. Maybe find some movement here. So kind of swaying side to side. All just options as you start to notice what's happening in your body, listen, and respond. One more breath here in wide-legged low lunge. And then if you're not already, you can come back up onto your hands, and we're going to come into half pigeon. So you're going to take your left foot, you can just heel toe it toward the right side of your mat, and then release your left knee down onto your mat. Half pigeon pose. So again, staying upright or coming down onto your forearms, your fists, hands, a block. You can even take a block underneath your left hip if you need a little extra support. And then we'll hold here for a few moments. Breathing deeply in and out through your nose, listening to your breath, noticing your body. Come back up onto your hands if you're not already. And then you're gonna just swing your right leg around and come into cradle the baby. So you're gonna lift your right leg up, hold on to your right foot with your left hand, your right knee with your right hand. So you might just hold here, or you can wrap your arms around your leg, clasp your hands, or you can cradle your calf in your elbows. Any option is fine. Again, I invite you to find a little movement here, swaying side to side, moving your foot up and down, in and out. And just kind of notice what's happening on this side. Might be different than the other side. And then from cradle the baby, we're gonna take that stretch for the low back. So you're gonna bring your right foot to the right, your left foot to your right inner thigh. Get active here, facing your toes up toward the ceiling. And then reach your arms up overhead, twist, so you're facing your right foot. And then either reach for your right foot with both hands, or you can walk your hands alongside your leg. Make sure though that you're in that twist, that your shoulders are level, and that you feel the stretch in your low back, especially as we're twisting in this direction, the lower left side. Now release from your fold. You're gonna bring your right foot to your left inner thigh, or your left hip crease, if you wanna take half lotus. Other option is to set your shin down on your mat. You're gonna take a twist here. Put your arms up overhead, breathe in, and then bring your left hand to your right knee, right hand out behind you. Maybe peek out over your shoulder, breathe in. And out. And release from your twist. Bring both legs straight out in front of you. Again, this is another excellent low back stretch as well as a hamstring stretch. But focusing more on the low back than the hamstrings, if you need to bend your legs a lot, I would like you to keep your spine long and hinge from your hips versus kind of pouring out over your legs. So as much as you need to bend your legs to feel the stretch in your low back, go ahead and do that. You can reach your arms up overhead once again, reaching toward your feet, a strap, or you can walk your hands just toward the front of your mat. Keep your legs active by pointing your toes straight up over your heels, and then just holding on to your quads, your calves, or the outer edges of your feet, or maybe wrapping your fingers around your toes, your big toes. Release from your fold. Reach your arms up and bring your hands back down towards your mat. So this will be the last time we return to our tabletop position. So go ahead and roll back over your knees. And from here, we're gonna come into rabbit pose, which is a great stretch for your low back and spine. So just take your feet flat to the floor, bring your knees together, sit your hips to your heels, and sit up nice and straight. If you've never done this posture and need to watch the screen, feel free to do that, and I'll just kind of talk you through it. So what you're gonna do is eventually you're gonna have a nice firm grip of your heels, and you're gonna round your spine down. And this is just an excellent stretch for your entire spine. So bring your chin to your chest, and then start to round your shoulders, and eventually you're gonna bring the crown of your head down onto the floor. Now get a nice solid grip of your heels. You're gonna take weight to the crown of your head, but not a lot of weight. Once you're in this position, you're gonna start to lift your hips up off of your heels, stretch your arms in the direction of straight, and just try to work in the direction of hips over knees. Might not be there yet. And again, a little weight in the top of your head, but not any pressure on your neck. And just notice the stretch going from your neck and your shoulders all the way down to your low back, your entire back body. And bring your hips back down toward your heels, and then just nice and slow roll up so you don't get dizzy. All right, cross over your ankles and lay down on your back. Bend your legs, take the tops of your feet flat to the floor, and then bring your feet, you can just heel toe them out once again to the edge of your mat at a 45-degree angle. Bring your arms into a goalpost position, and you're just gonna rock your knees back and forth. Great stretch for your hips and your low back. Next time your knees come to the right, just pause. Come into the full twist. If you want to take it a little bit deeper for your low back, you can take your right foot, lift it up, and place it on your left knee. And so just the weight of your foot on your knee deepens the twist, deepens your stretch. And come back to center. Place your right foot back down at the edge of your the right edge of your mat, and then rock your knees to the left and pause. And just hold here, or place your left foot on top of your right knee and just let the weight of your foot and your leg bring your knee a little bit closer to the ground without just rolling off to the side. So trying to keep your shoulders grounded on the floor. Come all the way back to center. Release your left leg. Go ahead and extend your left leg straight out on your mat. Flex your toes back toward your knee, and then draw your right knee in toward your chest. Take your hands around your right knee and just bring it up toward your right shoulder, and then draw your elbows in so you get a nice compression for your hip. And flex your right toes back toward your right knee. Just feel that stretch in your low back, feel the compression in your hip. And switch sides. So extend your right leg long on your mat, and then just draw your left knee in. Take your hands around your knee and bring your knee just around your ribs and up toward your left shoulder. Elbows in and down, and flex both feet back. Feel the compression in your left hip. Feel the stretch in and release. And then our last pose before Shavasana, Apanasana, knees to chest pose. You're now going to bring both knees to touch, both feet to touch If you can do it without crossing your ankles, that would be preferred, but whatever is needed. You're gonna draw your knees in toward your chest, take opposite hand toward opposite wrist or opposite elbow, or just hold on to your knees. But again, a deep compression for your hips, and to the best of your ability, start to just extend your spine long on your mat. So bringing your tailbone down toward your mat, as opposed to being in a ball. And try to get your spine flat and long. And then release any other postures that are needed before Shavasana. Take those now. Otherwise, we're going to make our way towards Shavasana by extending both legs long on your mat. Let your feet fall open. Arms rest alongside your body. And close your eyes. And just move around until you're comfortable on your mat. If you are having discomfort in your low back, you can always place a bolster or blankets underneath your thighs so that your legs are slightly bent versus flat and straight. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose. And let it go through your mouth. Just start to breathe naturally. Of course, if you have the time, please enjoy your Shavasana for as long as you can. Thank you so much for joining me for class today. Today, as you go forward, may you have peace in your thoughts, peace in your words, and peace in your heart. From my heart to yours, namaste.